Happy 2023, I cannot believe it. We are living in the future, 2023. It's like Blade Runner or something. I can't even quite comprehend the year that we're in, but here we are, and it's a new year, and what I'm gonna do, one of my resolutions this year is to do underwater videos on Wednesdays, okay? So to start, for 2023, I've laid out some baits here, some Berkley PowerBait Ice baits. So Berkley has gotten into the ice game recently, relatively recent. And if you guys have watched this channel at all, you know how much I am a big fan of Berkley PowerBait. I use their tubes all the time for smallmouth on the river out here, the Mississippi River near me. And I gotta tell you, when I saw this huge lineup that they have, and I'm only sampling just a small amount of their baits that they're offering now for ice fishing, but it's very exciting to me. So I went to the tackle shop and I bought just a few baits that looked interesting to me to kind of test underwater, and so that's what we're gonna do. But first, let me tell you what kind of line I'm using. I'm using Berkley Trilene Micro Ice 2-pound test. You want to use for ice fishing for panfish, and that's what these baits are for. These baits are for panfish, crappies, yellow perch, you know, sunfish, bluegill, those kind of species. So you know, we're vertical jigging, of course, for ice fishing, and I selected for this demonstration Berkley Fusion 19 tungsten jigs. So a tungsten jig head. This is a 16th ounce jig head we're going to use today, and it's got a size 12 hook, and it's a 5. So a lot of you know, tungsten jigs for ice fishing, they're categorized by size. This is a size 5. So that's a 16th ounce. That's important. I figure that's a good weight, just an overall weight, all around good weight to demonstrate what we're doing today. So we'll start off with the Berkley PowerBait Ice Mayfly in a pink shine color. This is a 0.75 inch bait, 2 centimeters. And here we go. We'll start it off with just a more subtle kind of presentation. You know, nothing too crazy. You can see those appendages. Got 3 little forks, like a pitchfork tail, which is kind of cool. And it's got some appendages coming off the side, tricolor, pink on the top, white on the bottom, or you can have it obviously whatever way. Maybe you want the pink on the bottom. But I'm using this jig head, 16th ounce. It's just a good all-around jig head size, and it shows up well for this purpose. So you can see, just kind of jigging it, not aggressively. Let's just kind of dead stick it a little bit and see what kind of happens to it. That little tail, or that fork tail has some movement to it, even if you're hardly moving the bait. So that's kind of how it looks dead sticked. And we'll try it a little bit more of just a subtle retrieve, not moving it much. That's kind of how that looks. And then we'll do more moderate retrieve. I should say presentation. We're not retrieving anything. This is a vertical presentation for ice fishing, obviously. And it's looking real nice. I like this combination too, with that glow and that pink body, pink shine. So this is a little bit more, going to a little bit more moderate presentation now. And those little arms on the side, got a little bit of wiggle to them, but it's really that forked tail. It's really got the action. And now we'll speed it up. We'll do a very aggressive presentation. See what that looks like. You're really trying to get those fish's attention. Just drill the hole, and you're really trying to get fish over to you. This is the kind of presentation you might want to do then. And now moving over to the Wishbone, and I want to apologize, this color is terrible. This is a purple color, terrible for filming in front of a black backdrop. I've learned my lesson here, but you can kind of get an idea right there. And this is shaped, basically two long tails coming out the back. A lot of action there, as you can see. And then on the sides, 7 little stubby appendages. Don't have a lot of movement. So with this bait, it's primarily that tail. That tail right there is giving you the action. And that thing looks really, really good. It's got a lot of action in that tail. This is kind of what I'm doing right now is we'll call it almost a dead stick, very neutral, negative presentation. You just get an idea. You can see that jig head really nicely. That's that Fusion 19 jig head. And that again is a 1/16 ounce, and you really get an idea what the body looks like now on that bait. Those 2 longer tails there. So we'll do a little bit more aggressive. We'll call this a moderate presentation. And those tails are really what makes this little bait shine. There's 2 long tails at the end. So you can see those side appendages. There's 7, like I said, on each side. And you know, I have it so the tail is, the 2 tails are basically flat. They're level, as you can see. You could also turn the bait to the side and have them, how would you call it? So they're basically, they're not flat level, they're more horizontal, almost like the fin of a fish. So we'll do a more erratic retrieve, really calling the fish in. You just got on your spot and you're trying to get those fish in. Hey, pay attention to me is basically when you're really aggressive, what you're calling out to the fish. Now we're gonna go to the Berkley PowerBait Ice Swordtail. In red, this thing shows up really, really nice. This is 1.25 inches, 3 centimeters, and obviously what makes this bait stand out is that tail. And I mean, it is a thin little tail. So even just, I mean, just holding it still, look at that thing. You can see just, I can't even keep it completely still, and that tail is quivering down there. So that is, that's a really great looking bait. There's a lot of things in the water that look like this bait. You got, I mean, there's all kinds of, I'm not even gonna go and pretend like I know all the invertebrates that live under the ice, but this definitely is something that you would see swimming around down there that panfish are going to be eating in the winter. And so that swordtail, obviously, look at the quivering action on that. We're going to just do a little bit more of a presentation that's more aggressive, but not too much. Let's just still keep it pretty subtle, because that's where I think this bait is really going to shine. It's just those really subtle movements of your rod tip. You're not going to have to do a lot. If you listen to the Another Fishing podcast or watch any of my videos, you know how much of a believer I am in Berkley PowerBait, and the fact that they have this line of, you know, ice fishing baits now is really exciting to me. I'm just a big fan of Berkley. So we'll go up to a little bit more aggressive presentation. Let's call this a moderate presentation, and you can see that tail looks really seductive. And yeah, I think a lot of fish are gonna have their triggers tripped with this bait. Again, that tail is where the action's at, but you do have four appendages on each side, smaller appendages. But again, that long swordtail is where it's at. Will increase the aggressiveness of the presentation now, and you can see that's just, I like this red color with this white head too, this glow head. It really is quite loud, but in situations, I'm sure there's situations where this color scheme would be really, really good. Makes quite an impression. Up next is the fry in purple, and again, I apologize. Number one, this bait is really, really small, so it's gonna be hard to see. And then this color, not great to see in front of the black backdrop. It's just one of those little baits that you're gonna use. Fish are really big and finicky. It just has a little tail, little tiny tail that comes out. You only have that for your action, that little tail. You can see it there. Just subtly shakes. It's not a long tail, so this is a very subtle bait. I would think that this would be a good option if the fish are not behaving and they're in a very neutral or negative mood. You'd throw something down the hole like this for them. So pretty basic bait here. Just one single tail coming out the back end, just a grub style body, and very basic lure here, very basic plastic. And so that's a very subtle presentation there. We'll pick it up a bit, give it a little bit more action. And again, this is probably a bait that you wouldn't be aggressively moving. That's probably the most you'd want to do with a bait like this. But just for demonstration purposes, we'll get a little crazy with it. And then just kill it. And it's a very, very dead sticky kind of presentation. The Berkley PowerBait Fry. And lastly, the Whipworm. This is a fun bait. It's got that long, flatter tail. This is 1.25 inches in natural white. That's a really great looking white. It's got a little bit of like kind of brownish specks in it. So it's not a bright white. It's kind of beigeish. And it looks really, really good on this jig head. This is just kind of more of a subtle presentation I'm doing right now. You can see that tail just quivering. It doesn't have as long of a tail as the swordtail, but this whipworm does have a pretty darn long tail, and it's flatter, so you can kind of see there that I have it so that flattish tail, it's not like just a perfectly cylindrical tail, if you will, you know, to a very skinny point. It's basically a flattened tail, and I have it so it's level, essentially with the horizon, if you will. So how we're looking at it flat on right now, it's horizontal with a level surface, level plane, if that makes any sense. So a little bit shorter tail than the swordtail, but really nice action there. That flatter tail, you can see, different than the swordtail. Not as much quivering as a swordtail, but you could still see that there is plenty of quivering going on there. It's just a different action, really nice presentation though. I like this bait a lot. And so that's just a more negative, neutral, subtle presentation there. You can just see it, how that tail just doesn't need a lot of movement to the rod tip, and you get that tail going. You can see that tail's working really, really nice. Barely quivering, and that tail goes to the end of that tail. And then we'll pick up a little bit more aggressive now on the presentation. Just a good looking bait. Nicely matched with this Fusion 19 tungsten jig head. Again, this is a 16th ounce jig head. Just a great little quivering tail there. And now we'll do a little bit more aggressive. Really trying to call the fish in. So you can see what that looks like. All right, there it is, my first underwater video, and I hope you enjoyed it. There's gonna be some things to learn here. I wanna hear your comments, your suggestions on how to make this better. I need to work on the lighting probably a little bit in the backdrop. I like that black backdrop. I think it's cool. I think it, with the right color, obviously, it's gonna kind of set, it's gonna showcase, let's put it that way, that bait really well, but it's gotta be the right color. No purples anymore. But this was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, in the comments, let me know how I can improve, and maybe more importantly, what baits you want to see underwater. We are fully into the ice fishing season up here in Minnesota, so a lot of what I'm going to be doing is going to be ice fishing related, but as we get into the season, we get into spring, I'll change it up and try to do all kinds of different baits. So hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.